This show and everything else on Complex Action is made possible by the generous support of our patrons on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/complexaction to learn more. You bring up freelancing and writing again, and I want to touch on that and before we wrap things up, and maybe I want to talk to you about this selfishly because writing is one of those things that I've always really passionately wanted to get into but never felt
Sure.
like it. How long, first of all, let me ask you, how long have you been writing in general?
That depends. In different contexts, I've been writing my whole life. Um, so in an academic context, I've never stopped writing. I've been writing papers and long theses and things like that in an academic setting for a very, very long time. I write speeches an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, for the podcast,
Yeah.
I write all that, and that's all has to be scripted, so it has a very particular voice. But as far as actually writing word fiction, I've done that not for very long, only a few years actually, and not prolifically. Prolifically. Um, it's just kind of one of those things where I tested my hand at it and it was like, oh, apparently I've been writing everything else for a long time, and it's kind of given me a set of skills that I can just do this. So, um, but creativity, I mean, I've been telling stories, writing stories, just not in the actual, not in a novel fiction setting, if that makes any
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm. So when you say you're one of the Shadowrun freelancers,
Yeah,
does in what context is that? Does that mean? I guess I don't know a lot about how freelancing works with Shadowrun. So are
sure.
you able to do um, anything you set your mind to now that you're kind of like considered to be on the freelance team? Are you able to just say, oh, I want to work on so and so chapter of so and so book, or do you only work on the missions or source? I mean, how does that what?
Sure. I think I'm allowed to say what I'm about to say. So if I'm not, um, everybody forgive me. But so the missions stuff for Shadowrun is handled completely separately from everything else. And it does get edited so that everything flows, and that again we don't want to contradict ourselves, so it gets edited. But that's really handled in a completely different fashion. So when I wanted to do that, I hit up Ray Regal and I said, "Hey Ray, blah 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 blah. I want to do a mission," and he said, "Great, everybody knows you. You can have a mission."
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
And it was kind of like that. So that's gonna hit in a year or two. So nothing's ever happens fast. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then along the way, I met Jason Hardy, and I glad handed him, and I just buttered it up a lot, and handed him my what do you call that? My
Portfolio.
thing. Portfolio. There you go. There's the word, right? I handed him my portfolio when I met him. And I said, "Hey, I would love for you to look at this, and I'd love to be, on the team." And he said, "Yeah, I'll look at it." And I basically badgered him. He was very gracious, but I badgered him over and over and over again
Yeah.
until we were able to go back and forth. And he said, "Yeah, I'll see what you can do." And then basically you just kind of wait, and I could, make pitches for anything I want. Anybody really could. But whether or not that fits into the greater scheme of what they're doing, whether or not they like the pitch, whether or not they have room for it, on the release schedule. I mean, all those different things, factor into it. And it's not like I have the new great American Shadowrun novel that's just been sitting on my
Yeah.
desk and I can just,
Right.
give it to somebody. So no, that's not something that I'm doing right now. I'm not writing novels, but I do have something that I wrote that hasn't been released yet for one of the upcoming products, and there I think I'll probably have to just stop talking.
Yeah. Right. Right. I
And
understand.
that'll be my first published work, and I'm kind of super excited
Yeah.
about
No
that.
doubt.
Um, and along the way, again, it's you. I'm in a freelancer pool, So a bunch of freelancers who have produced stuff, who haven't produced stuff yet, but are, in the process of, and people who are kind of doing the current content, like all in one big group, and we all just talk about stuff. I hope I didn't pull the curtain back too much on that, but having said that, there's kind of groups within that are kind of talking like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then along the way, of course, some of those people become actual friends of yours, and you have side
Right.
conversations like, wouldn't it be nice if that? Wouldn't it be nice if that? And then you can call that, a freelancer meeting, which is kind of fun. when really it's just you and Russell Zimmerman having lunch.
Right. So more in line with what maybe you can talk about and not have to dance around the illegal borders there. You mentioned that you had like a portfolio that you showed. Like, so what? Let's say somebody's out there and they want to kind of make their foray and make their attempt into getting into something like this, or in another product, even being a freelance writer. What does a writing portfolio, or at least for Opti, what did a writing portfolio like compose? What was it composed of?
Yeah, I think I think it'll probably depend on the publisher. And everybody will have their own portfolio full of work that they're really proud of. But ultimately, what I did is I kind of went and saw like, hey, what does this person want? What are they more likely to read? Like I said, if I just go and drop this 5,000 page
Right.
novel on somebody's desk, it could be great, but it'll never get read, and
Sure.
so that's a little bit kind of silly to do. So what I did is I had, I think, 4 or 5 short stories that were all kind of cyberpunk Shadowrun themed, that maybe could be made into something later, but ultimately just kind of showcased what I thought my best work was.
Sure.
Easy to read, bite-sized chunks of stories. That was my best. And then I was able to hand them that at Origins last year, 2 years ago, something. Anyway, and kind of went from there. As far as other publishers, I would say, from the people I know, the people I've talked to in this same boat, if you're a writer and writing is just what you do, then I would just say, put a portfolio together. Maybe one 10,000 word something, or maybe 4 or 5 1,000, 2,000 word somethings, and kind of slap a nice looking cover page on it,
Yeah.
and then just give it away. Like if you know that there's a new property coming out, like scan Kickstarter, right? And
Right.
you
Right.
see a bunch of new games coming out. You say, hey, here's my portfolio. I'd love to write fiction for you. I mean, like that would be kind of an easy way to go. You might not get paid a lot, but whatever. I'm not sure that a lot of RPG writers are going to be making millions and millions of dollars,
Right.
but I
Right.
don't think that's really what drives us either.
Sure.
But yeah, I would just say just get it out as much as you can. If you're confident in your work, or even if you're not, just get your best work. And I would say this too. It is worth it to get somebody who really, really knows how to edit, and to allow them to go through your stuff with a very harsh eye. Trust me, do this about 4 or 5 times, and it will make you an absolutely better writer. Because if you hand off your first draft to somebody, chances are it kind of will stink,
Right.
unless you are
Okay.
just amazing at it right off the bat, because you can't see your own mistakes as easily as other people can. So just kind of get a good working story, do it as best as you can, and then give it to people who are going to be brutal on you with their proofreading and their editing. And then once you've done that 4 or 5 times, then just start giving it away. Just start telling people you want to write for them, and giving it away.
That's really good advice. I say that like I said, I wanted to ask selfishly.
Sure.
I've always wanted to get into writing, but never felt like I knew how. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
I have other people to thank, friends that I had made in the industry, and they just basically told me like, hey, this is what you do. And I was like, Great, thanks.
Right.
But keep in mind that you're taking advice from somebody who actually hasn't been published yet. So
Sure.
grain of salt with all that.
Buyer beware.
But I'll let you know when that changes.
Right. All right, so that is our interview today with Opti of the Neo Anarchist podcast. Opti, I have been. This is kind of like a dream come true for me. It's really strange for me to be having just so recently, last year even, been just a geeking out kind of consumer of Shadowrun fan community content, and now I'm getting to sit here and talk to you about it. So I am so glad.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
No, and thank you for coming and talking to me. It's been a real pleasure, and I would like to direct everyone who's watching this who has not seen or who has not listened to your podcast to go over there, listen to. It's the Neo Anarchist podcast. Where can they find it?
You can find it on iTunes, on any of your podcast catchers. What are they called? Podcast catchers. There you go. Yeah, just a Neo Anarchist podcast, or you can go to neo-anarchist.com.
That's great, and it's really worth it if you're interested in Shadowrun. I would say if you're interested in the history, of course, go into it. But more recently, if you're just interested in the setting and the fluff, because you do a lot of content that's just about just in-character fluff kind of setting building. And in particular, GMs, head over there because he does this great thing now where he gives you, what do you call it? It's like a run, info dump and a run. Is that what it is?
Info and a run.
Info and a run. Yeah. And
it's where we give information on a particular gang in Seattle, and then we give a Shadowrun that's related to that gang. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun and a great jumping point for GMs out there who might want to come up with something for their players. So it's really great. Thanks again so much, and I hope that we can talk again sometime in the future. Maybe wax philosophic about Neo Anarchy one day.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And this has been Diary of a Game Master, the interview with Opti, and bye-bye.
Bye.